the world is still learning to keep pace with the cyber criminals. It is a cycle that is continuing. Most of these offenders, the main syndicates are cross-border. I see a lot of companies, big companies, they say, okay, we've got so-and-so data checks. We don't allow them to take out with pen drives. We don't allow anyone.
Right.
So today, everybody has a smartphone. All I have to do is, if there is confidential business data, I just need to click a picture of it. Indian concept of hiring is the flawed concept. Do not trust a smiling face. Do not trust any employee basically pertaining to data. And you need to have much better data practices.
Now, coming to DPDP, Puneet, if a CEO is watching the show,
which most organizations genuinely don't, they have it on paper, they don't have it in operational capability. The line between reality and the real world is getting more and more blurred. But yes, for regulation of ChatGPT, there would have to be separate AI regulation. Everybody is afraid. I have actually seen it, corporates and organizations, and many times HNIs also, even when we are registering their FIRs and everything, they're like, we want confidentiality. It should not go to the media.
Hello everyone, this is Kavita Kiran. Today we are joined by one of the most respected voices in cyber law and digital policies, Ms. Puneet Bhasin. She's a pioneering cyber law expert and an advisor to government bodies, and someone who has been shaping India's digital rights, privacy standards and online safety framework for over a decade. So Puneet brings deep clarity to some of the most complex issues in technology, digital law and governance. And I'm thrilled to have her on our show today. Puneet, welcome. So thank you so much, Puneet, for joining us today at Cyber Night. It's indeed an honor to be with you. And, we have been talking about the interview from quite some time, and I understand as GPT in the process, you're quite occupied. Thank you so much. And today is a great day for us to talk to you and decode some part of the DPDP as well.
Definitely.
Thank you. So to start with, Puneet, what is the one cyber threat you feel that all the Indian businesses must be avoiding, underestimating, so to speak, at the moment? And is India keeping pace with the sophistications of cyber criminals?
So I'll answer the second part of your question first.
Sure.
So the world is still learning to keep pace with the cyber criminals. It's not just India. So even the developed countries, the so-called developed countries, the Western world is also still grappling with that situation of dealing with cyber criminals. Yes, today, cyber crime syndicates are very sophisticated, almost functioning like corporates with the technical know-how, knowledge, and in a very advanced fashion. That is a fact. Now, law and order globally is one step behind. That is also a known fact. So it's not just something in our country that India is trying to tackle.
Right.
Globally, every other country is at one step back when a new type of crime is coming up, a new modus operandi of cyber criminals comes up, and then they are tackling the same. So this is a global situation that is there. Mm-hmm. Yes, it is something that needs to be addressed where maybe, it is required that we are one step ahead to them. But, technology is something that is drastically changing. The modus operandi of a criminal mind, every other day he can wake up with a new methodology to do. So this is, criminal law in a way, especially when we are dealing with cyber crimes, it's not a stagnant law. It is not that, okay, for example, theft happens, then the definition of theft is one thing only.
Right.
But when we are talking about cyber theft, suddenly there are 150 ways that can end up happening.
Right.
So humanly, it is
permanent there.
Yes. Humanly, it is impossible.
Right.
That, even the law enforcement wakes up every single morning and says, oh, today the cyber criminal has thought in his dream, this is the new method he's going to adopt. So it's always one step behind because the human mind of the criminal is using different modus operandi. Is changing the modus operandi. So the moment the law enforcement catches up, the modus operandi changes. So earlier, let's say there were those call center frauds that were happening.
Right.
Yeah. But the moment the police caught up on that, then came the AI voice modulation frauds. Then came the deepfake fraud. So basically, it is a cycle that is continuing. Mm-hmm. And yes, it will require very, very strong, robust, not just domestic level control. Because see, I'll tell you, let's say even if our law enforcement has the intelligence that these particular offenses are occurring, most of these offenders, the main syndicates are cross-border. So, what tends to happen is the criminals, the main syndicate is, let's say, in country X. Right. Their operational setup is in country Y, and the victims are in India.
Great, sir.
Okay. So yes, so for the law enforcement also, practically to say I'm going to be one step ahead, I need the entire world or XYZ country to be with me one step ahead.
Exactly. It's a very coordinated effect.
One step ahead.
Right.
until the entire world doesn't wake up to being one step ahead, I don't think India will be able to be one step ahead. It's a very unrealistic expectation considering, multinational factors which are there in different nations, the way, it is like a distributed methodology of the cybercrime syndicates.
Right.
So in order to genuinely tackle it, it will require a very organized international effort. That is when everybody would be one step ahead. And so the first part of your question,
Right. Yes.
what is it that Indian businesses completely are underestimating? They're completely underestimating the smiling employees who are completely there in time, or maybe, not in time, the disgruntled employees. See, what's there behind the face is the big question. Because, I'll tell you something. I see a lot of companies, big companies, they say, okay, we've got so-and-so data checks. We don't allow them to take out with pen drives. We don't allow anyone.
Right.
Today everybody has a smartphone. All I have to do is, if there is confidential business data, I just need to click a picture of it.
Picture of it, right. And that's made
You're spending billions of dollars and millions of rupees on putting, the person will not be able to download on his phone. He will not be able to do this. He will not be able to do that. Honestly, nobody needs to do that.
exactly.
So only some companies have made a lot of money, the cybersecurity companies offering these products. But the truth is, an individual doesn't require any of these if he wants to really commit this. If a person has that intent, systematically they can. And believe me, today a large number of people in organizations do have that intent. The reason being that, I have previously also reiterated this in different interviews wherein, the Indian concept of hiring is the flawed concept. Wherein HR sits right across and says, okay, what are you going to bring on the table from your previous employers? Now, until and unless that human nature of trying to poach, take something from the previous employer via this particular employee, that does not change. And the employee only brings his skill set on the table, and that is way more than enough for him to get a new job. You are never going to be able to overcome this. So the most important thing for businesses is, do not trust a smiling face. Do not trust any employee basically pertaining to data. And you need to have much better data practices, which are not so expensive. Honestly, they're not expensive. All data practices are definitely not expensive.
What if in defense to basically, as you rightly pointed out, somebody clicks a picture, an employee, how do we, what is the defense to it? What can a company do actually?
There are lots of them, as a matter of fact. So that's a complete subject altogether in itself on how we can go ahead and control this phenomena in an organization.
Right.
There are multiple steps over a period of time, and it doesn't cost millions of rupees. But it's an entire different subject altogether involving psychological aspects, certain technical tools, and along with that, operational management.
And that can be prevented.
I have implemented that in organizations. You don't require those expensive tools because eventually, even if you put them, a person who wants to do it can do it.
It's all about intent.
It's just that, you must have heard of that story earlier that, there were people living in a society or a complex, and every morning at 2 a.m., the watchman used to go and say, sab theek hai. Right. It was fine. They used to go.
What's to do with that?
Yes. And one fine day, they came to know that he was actually blind. So, you have installed something, you believe, okay, fine, that's more than enough, and you're sleeping well.
Right.
So it's about, companies making themselves relax that, okay, I have something, so it's safe. But whether that is genuinely what is the thing that is going to keep you safe is another big question always.
So we're still in a very, this kind of complacent zone actually. We feel that we have put all the ammunition is there and we are perfect, but there are lots of flaws to it. Now coming to DPDP, Puneet, if a CEO is watching the show, what's the one thing he should fix immediately in order to avoid any legal trouble, with the DPDP compliance?
The first and most important thing is understand what is required in the compliance. I have gone about seeing that, 20, 30 pages of checklists being circulated. And I don't see a lot of companies trying to bill and make a lot of money. Believe me, that much is not even prescribed by the board. It is a very stepwise level of compliance. So any CEO watching should understand to start doing the basics. And, don't let people take advantage of your gullibility, showing you the amount of penalty and that's how it is. Right. That's not the scenario. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it requires stepwise compliance. It requires compliance which is being informed to you by the Data Protection Board as and when. Right now, there is a set of compliance which is there in the Act. that needs to be complied with. Further steps, what will be required, will be informed to you. So it's not that, there is this huge checklist and number of pages and all of that. Those are just methods to increase billables.
Absolutely. And everybody's like completely overwhelmed with it, actually. Right?
Obviously, because see, don't mind me, but consultants cannot make money from you till they don't overwhelm you. You need to feel it's too much for you to handle is when you will give it to your
outsource it and you get an expert there. Absolutely. So basically, the key thing is they have to follow the basics and not get overwhelmed, right?
Don't get overwhelmed. The basic compliance needs to be done. That is not expensive. It is something, which is not very long drawn either. You're doing it for organizations in a span of 3 to 6 months. So what is it? What right now can be done very doable, affordable within 3 to 6 months. And as and when the Data Protection Board will continue to issue notifications and circulars, you need to continue doing that.
Right. Yeah, as a next step in continue.
Yes.
But at the moment, they just need to follow the basics. There's nothing like what will be the 3 steps that they have to do if a small time enterprise is watching it and they don't know exactly how to go about it?
They need to first of all have their data governance in place, which most organizations genuinely don't. They have it on paper. They don't have it in operational capability. So that has to be not just paper operational capability. Mm-hmm. Their entire vendor practices, internal business practices have to be made compliant through different forms of frameworks and implementations. Thereafter, the concept which you are talking about, consent, etc., the methodology of collecting consent, managing consent with respect to vendors, you don't need to have any consent management tool right now because of the fact that none of them are empaneled with the Data Protection Board. Until and unless the Data Protection Board doesn't say these tools are the ones empaneled with us, you can choose from them. Till no tool can ever provide you anything. So all of that is also another big thing going on.
Right.
But right now, it's just the governance framework, collecting consents, consent policies, having them displayed properly, ensuring having proper vendor management pertaining to data compliances. These are the few key aspects that need to be done by the organization at this point of time.
Okay. That's
obviously a proper breach reporting mechanism internally and externally that needs to be developed and practiced within the organization.
Definitely. Thanks, Syed. I think it should be helpful for the people who are watching it. Now, with AI tools, Puneet, deepfakes and voice cloning has become very mainstream. What's a new cyber legal risk should companies prepare for in the next 12 to 18 months?
Well, in 12 to 18 months, a lot is going to change. Right now is what you're looking at, AI and deepfakes primarily. But I think the bigger risks that are going to come up are going to surpass these kind of deepfakes. Right now, some of the deepfakes look deepfake, but a lot of times, in future, what I anticipate is a lot of these things, especially when I see content nowadays being there, there are these AI-based series itself coming up, which look so genuine as if you would think there is a human being itself in that. Mm-hmm. So I see that it raises more questions to me that this could be, so many issues that can come up wherein, there can be CCTV footages that are tampered. There can be so many other major offenses that can occur with this kind. The differentiation of truth and false would be lost.
Really lost. Right.
The more than for corporates, I would say for the world, it is a matter of concern that not just companies, individuals, where, the line between reality and the real world is getting more and more blurred, that it's very difficult then to bifurcate whether this is real or not real.
Right.
And that's going to have very, very dangerous ramifications.
Yes, absolutely. So, from the legal, also I wanted to check with you, Puneet, one more question. Now, with people, constantly and very rampantly using, ChatGPT to all the AI tools available, especially, will that come on also under the DPDP Act? Like, how can you control that in terms of the kind of information which is being fed? Will all that also come out in the scanner?
See, there in ChatGPT, obviously, if they want to operate in India, will have to comply. So if they're collecting personal information, identifiable information, they will have to have compliance with the DPDP Act. But yes, for regulation of ChatGPT, there would have to be separate AI regulation.
Right, that's what. So at the moment, DPDP does it.
At this point of time, there is additional regulation of this that is required. Few countries only have, but that is also very rudimentary regulation. More robust regulation is definitely.
Now, now my next question is, why do, with the data breaches, as you rightly pointed out, on the rise everywhere globally? But why do Indian companies, maybe this is the funda outside also the firm, why do Indian companies fear reporting data breach more than, they're handling the breach actually? So what actually happens legally when they report it versus when they do hide it?
So in India, we have something called sensationalization in the media. That is what companies fear. But yes, for regulation of ChatGPT, there would have to be separate AI regulation. राई का पहाड़ भी बन जाता है. So, everybody is afraid. I have actually seen it, corporates and organizations, and many times HNIs also, even when we are registering their FIRs and everything, they're like, we want confidentiality. It should not go to the media. Even if, there are cases they've lost heavy amounts of money, even if, let's say, the accused party is also a well-known person, they are also very well-known, but, they would still want to keep it under wraps because of the fear of sensationalization by the media. Which can, go either ways. The way, however the channel will want to sensationalize, tadka, masala, sab dalta hai. So that is the biggest issue. Why, organizations fear that it could affect their share prices. It could affect so many things. Things are not reported as is. They tend to get more than what it may be, maybe lesser also. So either ways, it's not to the point reporting. So that is something which definitely deters a number of individuals and organizations to report. With respect to if you report it, there are always more benefits to it, that the fact that the regulators are informed, because if it later on comes out into public knowledge via the dark web, etc., then obviously with the DPDP Act now existing, the penalization, and before this also, when the DPDP Act was not there, the regulators used to penalize. So whether it may be SEBI, RBI, if you were coming within the sector of those regulators, they used to penalize. Whereas if you have reported, you have taken the necessary steps, then the compliances, maybe there would be advisories or a lesser amount of penalty that would be imposed as compared to you being completely non-compliant.
Right. Okay. So still, because of the media and the over-sensationalization, actually, that's your core.
Over-sensationalization by the media, that does tend to happen. Everything becomes a breaking news. So the fear that is there, that, if today this company becomes a breaking news, their share prices may drop and honestly, they will lose money. So, that uncertainty of how the media will deal with it, right, is what is the major concern. And I don't think that's the concern only in India. That is the concern globally with almost all companies. You don't know which media may portray you as what. Right. The truth is, let's say, even if you look at any foreign company, maybe the domestic media may not portray them that way, but some foreign entity media may end up portraying.
Yeah, like the recent Jaguar cyber attack, basically.
It's not just Indian media that is sensationalized. Yes, we are more exposed to the Indian media, but globally you have no idea which media will portray you as. Yes. All of those global influences can also affect your organizational performance. So yes, that's one of the major concerns.
And where do you, most organizations slip during breach reporting to CERT India or, Data Protection Board? And what are the consequences of getting it wrong?
See, the problem is most organizations, their breach reporting mechanisms itself are flawed and mostly copy-pasted. So employees from one organization come to another, bring that particular policy, copy-paste it out over here and go into the next and copy-paste it out. So what they call the handbook, which continues in the same way. Now, whether that applies to that business or not is another question. Whether it is practical for that business is another question. So technically, what tends to happen is, if you report a breach without adequate compliance and study, it is basically aa bail mujhe baar. Right. The reason I say that is breach reporting, even whether it's under certain or under the board, a very clear guidelines. It is about how you came to know of the breach, what action you took, what are the data sets that have been breached, have the data subjects been notified, how have you contained it. All of this, which is going to happen within a very short span of hours, which will mean for you to answer all these questions and provide a breach reporting. You need to be fully prepared prior and robustly have all the professionals and mechanisms for you to be able to make such a reporting. If you report, I have been breached, I came to know on so-and-so day and we are doing something about it, then believe me, you are absolutely messed up as an organization. And even the regulators can see through that, this is just a casual reporting. This is not a compliant reporting. So you are basically making your case worse by making such kind of a flawed reporting. And believe me, 99% organizations make such a flawed reporting.
despite having a team internally and being the lots of skills, like, so where does the
Having a team is one thing. Having a team that has the adequate knowledge for it is another story.
absolutely, yeah.
So there is a serious skill set deficit in this space in the industry itself. So you may have the team may have the bodies, practical skill sets to deal with it. Practical skill sets is one thing. Theoretical skill is one thing. The practical of how to deal with it is quite another.
Right. It's mostly the reporting itself goes flawed, right? That's
The starting point itself is flawed. So I have seen that for 99% organizations, when they get back that notice from the regulator, which is asking them to come for a hearing and, very strict, stern kind of a revert back on what steps you've taken.
Right.
That's when they come. They don't come at the initial step to me that, okay, we want to report this. How should we report this? So they kind of go ahead and send whatever they want. And then when the repercussion is there, now what do we respond?
Right. Till then, they are like, okay, whatever we are reporting, it will be closed, kind of, yeah. So do you think the government has to, like, the bodies have to be much more stern and...
They already are stern. Who says they are?
Despite that, no, they still have to prove.
The lack of practical skill and see, what tends to happen is in-house teams in most organizations, they have dealt with the situations within that organization.
Right.
Practical skills of these things happen to those, for example, a eye surgeon who is performing surgeries every day of the eye will know how to perform an eye surgery.
Correct. Exactly.
Correct?
Yes. Right.
But there may be multiple people, let's say eye surgeons who are working, let's say, for a research organization, etc. But their surgical skills will not be there.
Yes. Because practically they have
done that.
So even though they do a lot of tabletop exercises and all, definitely, but yeah, that is more to handle a big
Yeah.
These are what they do, right? Or most of the companies, they say, oh, we have done all the, tabletop exercises.
That is theoretical again.
Exactly.
Up the situation when it is, until and unless you have genuinely been there, done that, known it multiple times, you are not going to be able to on the spot respond. And that is a fact for any profession.
True, absolutely.
Any profession.
Yes. Practical and theoretical is always a very different body altogether.
That concludes Part 1. We've identified the systemic flaws in our security and hiring. But as we sit here in February 2026, the transition period for the new DPDP rules is already underway. How do we fix these systems? We dive into the solutions, data governance, and AI regulation in Part 2. Stay tuned.